I never lost sight of the fact that I was being paid by my missionary company to translate the Bible into the Pirahã language. The Summer Institute of Linguists believes that the most effective way to evangelize indigenous peoples is to translate the New Testament into their language. In my free time, I would also talk to people about my faith and why it was important to me. In the evening, after my family had finished dinner, when we were still cool from our baths in the Maisi River, we would make coffee for some of the villagers who visited. Because the Pirahãs had no word for God, I used a term Maihi Hioya, which means high-up father. I said that our high-up father had made my life better. He had come into my heart and made me happy. Ko'oi asked me once, "What else does your God do?" I told him, "Well, he made the stars and he made the earth." Then I asked, "What do the Pirahã say?" He answered, "Well, the Pirahãs say that these things were not made." So I would go further and ask questions like, who made the Maisi River? Where did the Pirahãs come from? But I soon began to realize that they had no creation myth or traditional story. The Pirahãs don't talk about the distant future or the distant past. They don't talk about unexperienced events or fictional topics. They live only for the present. One night I decided to tell them something very personal about myself, that my stepmother committed suicide, and that this had led me to Jesus. The Pirahãs burst into laughter. This was unexpected, to put it mildly. "Why are you laughing?" I asked. "She killed herself. Ha ha ha! How stupid! Pirahãs don't kill themselves," they answered. They were utterly unimpressed. The fact that someone I'd loved had committed suicide was no reason at all for the Pirahãs to believe in my God. Indeed, it had the opposite effect. The Pirahã men then asked, "Hey, Dan, what does Jesus look like? Is he dark like us or light like you?" "Well," I said, "I've never actually seen him. He lived a long time ago, but I do have his words." "Well, Dan, how do you have his words if you have never heard him or seen him?" They then made it clear that if I had not actually seen this guy, they weren't interested in any stories about him. This is because the Pirahãs believe only what they see. What a setback for my missionary objectives. It made me think long and hard about my purpose among the Pirahãs. One morning I was sitting in the front room of our house, drinking coffee with several Pirahã men, and Ko'oi came in. "Hey, Dan, I want to talk to you," he demanded. "The Pirahãs know that you left your own land. We know that you do this to tell us about Jesus. You want us to live like Americans. But the Pirahãs do not want to live like Americans. We like to drink. We like more than one woman. But we like you. You can stay with us. But we don't want to hear any more about Jesus. Okay?" The other men present seemed to agree with him. So I replied, "If you don't want Jesus, you don't want us." I then explained I needed to get on with my studying, so the men rose and left to go fishing. This shocked me, and this information presented me with a clear moral choice. I had gone to the Pirahãs to tell them about Jesus, and to give them an opportunity to choose joy and faith over despair and fear, to choose heaven over hell. I talked this over with my wife Karen. We decided that before we made any decision, we would take our first trip back to the United States in over 5 years. And I thought hard about the challenge of my missionary work. I was trying to convince a happy, satisfied people that they were lost and needed Jesus as their personal Savior. On our return, we decided to move to another village. We had something new to offer this group of Pirahãs, the recently translated Gospel of Mark in Pirahã, recorded in my own voice. I brought in a wind-up tape recorder and taught the Pirahãs how to use it. A few weeks later, the people were still listening to the Gospel, with children cranking the recorder. I was initially quite excited about this, until it became clear that the only part of the book they paid attention to was the beheading of John the Baptist. Wow, they cut off his head. Play that again. It was becoming clear that the message I had staked my life and career on did not fit the Pirahã's culture. They didn't feel lost, so they didn't feel a need to be saved either. They are firmly committed to the pragmatic concept of utility. Surprisingly, all this resonated with me. The Pirahã's rejection of the gospel caused me to question my own faith. There was so much about the Pirahã's that I admired, their quality of inner life, their happiness, their contentment. The Pirahã's have built their culture around what is useful to their survival. My faith seemed a glaring irrelevancy in this culture. It was superstition to the Pirahã's, and it began to seem more and more like superstition to me. I began seriously to question the nature of faith, of believing in something unseen. Sometime in the late 1980s, I came to admit to myself that I no longer believed in any article of faith, or in anything supernatural. I was a closet atheist. I was not proud of it, and I feared the consequences. It took 20 years for me to reach the place where I was finally prepared to take the consequences of my deconversion, and as I expected, when I finally announced my change of belief, it had severe consequences for me personally. It's such a difficult decision for anyone to tell his closest friends and family that he no longer shares their foundational beliefs. In the end, my loss of religion and the epistemological crisis that accompanied it led to the breakup of my family, the one thing I had most wanted to avoid. I went to the Pirahã's when I was 26 years old. Now I'm old enough to receive senior discounts. I gave them my youth. Now my grandchildren all know the Pirahã's, and my children are who they are in part because of them. The Pirahã's have shown me that there's dignity and deep satisfaction in facing life and death without the comfort of heaven or the fear of hell, and in sailing toward the great abyss with a smile. And they've shown me that for years I held many of my beliefs without warrant. I've learned these things from the Pirahã's, and I will be grateful to them as long as I live.